Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the Committee of the Whole for Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021 to order. First off, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interests? Seeing none, need a mover and seconder for approval of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Bothwell, seconded by Councillor Cadwell. Moved by Councillor Bothwell, seconded by Councillor
Recording
Cadwell.
in progress.
Resolved that the agenda for the Committee of the Whole meeting of August 3rd, 2021 be approved. All in favor? That's carried. And I just have an announcement before we move to the delegation. We are happy to announce that the town is once again participating in the Digital Main Street program. This initiative helps local brick and mortar businesses apply for $2,500 grants so they can leverage digital tools to promote their goods and services online. All Grimsby businesses, including those located outside the DIA, are eligible to apply under this version of the Digital Main Street program. I encourage all local business owners to reach out to the town's digital squad service member, Madison Judson, if they would like assistance with their grant application or would like more information about how they can expand their businesses' online presence. And just one other note, hopefully IT is working very hard on it, that we're going to have modified in-chamber meetings for Monday, August 23rd, 2021. We won't have members of the gallery then, but we are hoping for Tuesday, September 7th, 2021 to have limited gallery participation. So that's exciting news. And on that note, more exciting news, I'd like to welcome Matt Robinson. Harry's going to do an intro. Harry, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate that. Yeah, Council, if you recall, Matt and his team with Scott Fraser were addressing you in February 1st of this year. I would like to say I was privileged to work with Matt and Scott and the other 12 CAOs over the past 6 months. We heard loud and clear from Council then in February that we needed to look at the financial model. And I will say that Matt and Scott will show you that we've come up with a financial model that I feel is very fair for the town of Grimsby and its residents in addressing transit, as well as they've addressed a governance model that allows one rep from Grimsby. And they've really come up with a model that talks about, you know, we pay only what we get in the services we get, and the team will show you that. And having been a big part of that review, I totally feel that they've set us up well for the future and addressed the needs that Council sent us back in February. And this is a time for you to provide further feedback as we move forward in the fall for a triple majority vote. Thank you.
Okay, I hope everything is good. Can everybody see me? Councillor Vardy, you're the one I can see. Can you give me a thumbs up? You can see my screen? Perfect. Okay. Well, good evening, Mayor and Council, and thank you for the opportunity to be here again to discuss the latest progress we've made on transit governance. I'm pleased to be here on behalf of the Linking Niagara Transit Committee and the Area CAO Governance Steering Committee. The purpose of tonight's presentation, as Mr. Schlang said, is to continue our discussion and consultation with Council regarding the future of transit in Niagara and take another step forward toward an integrated, consolidated system. With me tonight are some familiar faces, Heather Talbot and Scott Fraser from the Region's project team. They were with you last time before Council in February. Before I begin, I wanted to again recognize the investment this Council has made recently in transit by way of NRT On Demand. The use of the service in Grimsby has been exceptional, especially during a pandemic. The latest numbers have over 16,000 rides to date. That's 60% of the overall West Niagara usage. So with a near 50-50 split between local and inter-municipal trips by Grimsby users, there's a very clear demand for transit in Grimsby by your residents. I also wanted to recognize our regional councillors, Mayor Jordan and Councillor Furtick. Councillor Furtick is also the vice chair of the LNTC committee, and recognize the hard work of town staff, in particular your CAO, Harry Schlang, who's been very active in his participation in the CAO Governance Steering Committee, who's been guiding this work. So tonight is an update on the progress that's been made since we were before council earlier this year. At that time, we presented the results of the Niagara Transit Governance Study, as well as an associated financial model, and received feedback from every municipality. In particular, we heard that the previous proposed financial model did not work for Grimsby. There was a need for more direct representation on the board and the need to provide additional detail regarding future service levels. What we want to demonstrate tonight is that we've listened. We've heard you. We've changed the models because we want to get the proposal right. We took your feedback and, using the 13 CAOs in collaboration, developed a series of revised strategies we hope meet your expectations. Tonight is a chance to review these revised models and for you to provide us with any additional feedback you may have. To be clear, tonight is a second round of consultation and an opportunity for further discussion. Tonight does not represent the triple majority vote to move forward with consolidation. That is anticipated to come later this year after we've heard from all municipalities again and reflected any additional feedback we might receive. So when we were here last, you told us at that time that the financial model, board composition, and service standards needed to be more closely examined. This feedback was very consistent with what we heard from your peers. These three common themes emerged during the first phase of consultation and are where we focused our efforts to review and revise the proposal. To directly address the feedback, the smaller CAO working group was expanded and reformed as the CAO Transit Governance Steering Committee. So you may hear me referring to GSC, that's the Governance Steering Committee, and its membership is the 13 CAOs. So it was supported by senior staff. That GSC was supported by senior staff from the municipalities across the region, including all the treasurers, the communications professionals, and transit individuals as well. Its mandate was to review all of the feedback received and revise the financial, governance, and service models to reflect what we heard. It's the output of that process, which was reached by consensus among the CAOs, that we're here to share with you tonight. You also have a staff report before you later in the agenda, and we certainly appreciate the recommendations contained in that report. So last time, we clearly heard the financial strategy did not work for all municipalities. As a result, we went back to a first principles approach and examined a wide range of alternatives. In fact, 11 financial alternatives were considered and analyzed during that review. The core objective was to ensure we addressed this key point of municipal feedback. In particular, we needed to ensure that municipalities were paying for the services they received, given there's different levels of service that already exist in many municipalities. The new financial strategy, based directly on municipal feedback, now uses 12 special levy rates, one for each municipality, linked directly to the service hours you receive. This service-based principle means that the residents will pay for the service they receive both now and as growth happens in the future. Under the new model, your regional special levy pays for service in your community. The financial strategy also incorporates a number of additional features, such as the establishment of a capital reserve to ensure that the future needs of the commission are met as well. So what does this mean for Grimsby specifically? Today, town residents contribute a combined $1.5 million towards transit. This is a combination of $1.25 million in costs on their regional tax bill with $250,000 in local levy costs. This combined contribution supports NRT on demand, making trips both locally and intermunicipally to other municipalities, connection and transfer to the larger NRT system, which NRT on demand connects to, that's adjacent in Welland or St. Catharines onto the rest of Niagara, as well as support for the Niagara Specialized Transit Service. Under the revised financial model, on opening day of the integrated system in 2023, the cost to Grimsby residents have been significantly reduced from the previously proposed assessment-based approach. All transit costs would still transition to the regional levy as part of the 12 special levy model, and the town's local municipal budget would no longer include transit costs. As examined in your CAO report this evening, the remaining increase of approximately $200,000 is shown in 2023 is mainly the result of inflation between 2020 and 2023, and the conclusion of the NRT on-demand pilot, where the service will move to a proportional cost allocation based on service hours. To be clear, these costs are expected to be realized regardless of the move to a consolidated system. Should governance not proceed, it's likely future on-demand services after the pilot program will also be based on a service hours or user pays model. In 2025, as the first phase of service improvements are implemented under the new commission, the on-demand hours of operation are proposed to expand. This results in an additional 3 hours of weekday, as well as additional Saturday service, as well as the introduction of Sunday and holiday service for town residents. The cost for that service will be directly tied to the service hours provided, in keeping with the overall principle established of the updated financial strategy, being your residents will only pay for the services they receive. The second area of feedback we heard was related to the composition of the commission board. In particular, we heard that additional or more frequent representation on the board was a priority. The revised composition is a transitional board to be established for the first 3 years, comprised of 15 elected representatives from across Niagara, at least one dedicated representative for each municipality. The transitional board, which will be made up of regional and or local councillors, directly reflects what we've heard from you about the need for enhanced elected representation, providing an opportunity for elected officials to guide the establishment of the commission in its initial operation directly for its early years. The commission board would be supported by an advisory board, which would be comprised of 20 public and interested party representatives that would provide non-binding input and advice to the commission board on a quarterly basis. After the first 3 years, an external review of the transitional model would be undertaken to examine if the fully elected composition of the commission board, its size and share of representation, is achieving the strategic outcomes of the commission. The third theme that emerged was the need for additional detail on how service would be maintained and enhanced, especially in the early days of the commission. To provide this detail, a project team was led by one of the local transit managers. That was established to develop a series of service standards. The approach of a series of service standards was chosen because right now, every transit system in Niagara operates a bit differently in terms of its hours of operation, its service coverage, frequency, and other items. And establishing a common baseline for future presents the best method to integrate and standardize the differences. The standards that were developed are intended to act as a guideline to the future commission, indicating the types of enhancements that it might choose to undertake, but allows municipalities the confidence in knowing how service is likely to expand in their communities over the coming years. The rollout of the standards has been grouped into 3 phases. The first being standardization of operating hours, the second being a combined or combination service of specialized and on-demand, and phase 3 is a network review once the system has been optimized. As we know, transit in Grimsby today is currently delivered through NRT on demand, as well as specialized transit services provided by Niagara Region through NST. Under a commission, on-demand or demand-responsive transit will be continued and shared across many municipalities in Niagara. For Grimsby, this means that in phase 1, the hours the service operates would be extended, adding new service from 6 and 7 a.m. and then between 10 p.m. and midnight, and includes Sundays and holidays. This increase will align the hours of operation of on-demand with the services that it connects to, such as St. Catharines Transit or Welland Transit to the east, and support getting to and from GO trains in the future. Think of commuters using transit in the morning to connect to an early GO train or to their job in St. Catharines, or the family who's gone to a Blue Jays game and is returning later in the evening, or Brock students studying late. Without local transit operating early and late in the day with reliability and consistency, these transit options are severely limited. In phase 2, the Commission will look at opportunity to harmonize the on-demand and specialized services into one combined operation. This will be considered as a way to more efficiently deploy the resources of the Commission, given that both of these services share a number of similarities. And then in phase 3, the Commission would undertake a comprehensive network review to then examine further opportunities to grow and enhance the network, especially as GO Train service arrives. While I don't have any updates additionally on that front, specifically this evening, what I can say is that our work with Metrolinx, province and town staff continues very aggressively, and we hope that we will have more to say on GO Train expansion here in Grimsby in the very near future. The final topic I'd like to touch on this evening is how the public and our interested transit partners will be involved in the process moving forward. As we complete this summer political roadshow, in partnership with our municipalities, we will also be launching a communications and engagement strategy that will include a standalone website and public survey, providing residents and transit users information on the project and an opportunity to continue to provide us with input. We will also be undertaking a series of information workshops with community partners, such as key businesses, downtown associations, seniors groups, our 2 post-secondary partners, as well as other groups whose mandate involves and relies on transit, such as health services. So what comes next? We've committed to continue listening, addressing and integrating your feedback to create a proposal that can be successful, ensuring you have all the information you need as a council to make an informed decision when the time arises later this fall. We hope that the revised strategies that we've presented tonight and which are contained in the staff report and accompanying regional report, the financial, service standards, and board composition models have addressed the feedback and concerns this council identified during the first round of consultation. What we're asking for tonight is any additional feedback that you may have on the revised strategies. From here, we'll be incorporating this feedback into the final strategies that form the consideration vote later this fall. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I thank you again for council's time tonight, and we look forward to answer any questions that council may have.
Great. Thank you very much for your presentation, Matt. And it's really nice to see that you've taken the early recommendations, gone back to the table, and come back with a revised plan that seems to be better for everyone. Thank you. Councillor Cadwell.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Jordan, and through you to the presenter. Thank you very much, Matt, for your presentation. I've just got a couple quick questions. And the first one, again, I'm not trying to put the cart before the horse here, Matt, but as I think of transit, I think of a lot of a different Burlington Transit, which I'm very familiar with. So what I'm alluding to, what size buses would we be seeing? Or can you answer that now, or is it too early? But I'm just curious to what size buses we'd be seeing coming to West Niagara.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Cadwell, and I'll throughout the Q&A, I'll call on Mr. Fraser and Ms. Talbot to assist me as well. But what I can say, Councillor, is that in the early stages, those decisions are really operational and based on demand going forward. What I think you can see in the service plan before you is this incremental growth between on-demand transit, a move to a community bus, and then a move to fixed route service, which are the big 40-foot buses. Could we see a scenario in the early days where the current van fleet, which is in service, could be augmented to a larger vehicle given the increasing levels of demand? That's very possible. And in order to make that type of move, the Commission has in the financial model the ability to provide capital to make those types of transitions where they make sense. Moving from a smaller van type vehicle to a more mixed fleet where you would see some of the larger vehicles, not quite a full-blown 35, 40, 60-foot bus, but looking at a larger vehicle with more space, picking up more residents as more and more demand grows. So at the current time, that's in the service plan as a projection going forward, but it does contemplate both the move to larger vehicles as well as the funding to enable the commission to do that.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. And obviously, you're absolutely right. It's based on ridership numbers and revenue that gets brought in from the riders. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because what I was thinking, Matt, quite familiar with Niagara on the Lake. They have their own little transit system, which they've had for a number of years, with minibuses and that. I don't know if that would be, it's just something I'm just thinking about. Anyways, thanks for answering that question. The other one I do have, if you could give us a Coles Notes version to it, Matt, just for the public that may be watching, could you explain the triple majority, how that works, which will be happening in the fall, as you mentioned? If you don't mind, just a short, quick version.
Yeah, that's fair.
Public,
Perhaps through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Cadwell, I'll pass this to Mr. Fraser to walk through that process.
Thank you.
So through the mayor, the triple majority process really contemplates or requires 3 votes be achieved, or 3 criteria be met. The first one being that a majority of council, regional council level votes for it to advance it. So just achieving a +1, half +1 vote at regional council. The second part then is that a majority of the municipalities, or lower tier municipalities across Niagara, need to vote in favor. So there's 12 lower tier municipalities across Niagara. So 7 councils would need to support it across Niagara. Of those 7 that then support it, there needs to be a minimum of 50% of the electors across Niagara in support, or comprised of those councils that vote in favor. So electors is slightly different than residents. It's 18 plus, people who are eligible to vote in an election, but pretty analogous with the residents of the population of each municipality. So it's first that regional council votes in favor of it. Yep. Second, that a majority of councils across Niagara vote in favor of it. And thirdly, that of those who vote in favor of it, that 50% of the electors are represented.
That's great. Thanks, Scott. I was just taking some notes there because it's, I know people are going to ask members of council, what does triple majority mean? But again, thanks for that breakdown. Really appreciate that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I have a couple of questions. So I know we haven't got to the report yet, but I very much appreciate this as an opportunity for a second stage of feedback, because in the report on page 4, it says, I think this is the CAO's report, that staff believe that the changes recommended by the GSC address the points of feedback that were previously provided. No additional feedback has been recommended for the second round of consultation. So I was disappointed to read that in the report, but I'm enthused to read that from you, Matt, that you're open and willing to receive some additional feedback. I think what I think still weighs a little heavily is the idea of a commission being an administrative burden, a large overhead cost to municipalities. One of the statements in the report also says that St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, Welland represent 77% of all transit costs, and they get charged 74% of the operating budget and 85% of the capital budget. So I would just ask that when we're looking at the financial model, that the governance overhead and any administration costs for that are representative as well of those figures, and are proportionately allocated to the municipalities, so that we're not seeing a greater burden on overhead and administration costs with a new governance model. I'd like to see that, I know that there have been great strides made on accessibility with the NRT on demand. I'd like to see maybe further enhancements. I'm hearing a little bit of struggle with those that are challenged to use the system. I'd like to see further improvements if possible in incorporating some feedback from accessibility networks and community advocates on how to better position us moving forward with meeting all all needs for all people to make it usable, the system usable, both from the app and from the purchase to the experience, to the end result. So I'd really like to see some further improvements on that, if possible, as we move forward. The other thing I'd like to see, I understand that the movement is towards the current contracted Niagara On Demand service moving towards an in-house fleet and service maintained by the region with their own vehicles. I think prior to any movement on moving from a contracted service model to an in-house capital model, that cost benefit analysis, the labor, the HR, the unionization potential, the capital and the O&M costs all be thoroughly researched and brought back to the municipalities that currently have NRT on demand to determine whether or not that is the most viable option of moving from contracted services to an in-house model. And I don't know if that's 2025, but I think I wouldn't want to see that happen without us having further input into that decision, just because I'm suspecting that then that involves a unionized labor force, whatever, and some further changes to how those operating capital costs are. And I'm wondering if, Matt, you could answer, I know that you're looking at the connection to the Hamilton border. Has there been discussion that that is a requirement, that in order for our transit to connect to the Hamilton transit or into that system, that ours have to be a unionized labor force, or is there any issues with the current model that we're using and making that connection to the Hamilton Stony Creek border?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, right now in the current state where we have a simple pickup drop-off location at Winona Crossing at the Costco Plaza, there is no unionized requirement from the HSR side. That has not been a discussion. What I can say is that we've been in touch regularly with the union representatives at HSR, as well as their council, who raised and flagged the private operator delivery model that is employed by Niagara. So though Hamilton and their ATU have at the present time merely flagged that, at some point in the future, when the services become more and more seamless together, and or other stops are brought online to connect directly with HSR, perhaps that becomes a consideration. But at the current time, simply making a single stop from NRT on demand into Winona Crossing, it does not seem to be, given that limited stop point and transfer agreement, it does not seem to be an issue at the current time.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you. And I appreciate the community is really embracing the NRT and the services, and I'm really pleased to see the metrics that you've provided and the support the region is providing. I think it is an extremely valuable service, and it's just, I think as we move forward, we just want to be cautious as to what that means as a commitment to our taxpayers. So thank you very much, Matt.
Councillor Vardy.
Hi, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Matt. Hi, Matt. I've got quite a few questions, and like for me, my bottom line always comes down to money. How much does this cost? And I just did a quick little math here, and we've had 16,000 rides, and I know we're paying $250,000 a year. So we probably even spent more than that because we've gone over a year. But that means that, each ride is upwards of $15. So $3 is paid by the person taking the ride. And then the other 12 is coming from somewhere. So basically it's coming from the the taxpayer. So, while I think it's great that people have embraced NRT on demand, I think we have to be really realistic about what transit costs, because transit is expensive. And I know I'd like to drive a Ferrari, but I drive a Subaru. So, because that's all I can afford. And so I just want to make sure that whatever Grimsby does, it's affordable, because we only have one taxpayer. So basically, while a resident might pay $3, the rest of the taxpayer base is paying the subsidy, which is upwards of at least $15. So that's a little bit of a concern. And I think as we move to a kind of regional model, because we don't have the population base, it worries me that bigger cities like Niagara Falls and St. Catharines that have a much larger base, that there will be like a little bit lost in that. And we might end up subsidizing larger communities or even buying into something that we just can't afford. You know, even though you say, okay, you'll no longer be paying for this locally, it'll be paid regionally. Our taxpayer base is the same base. So it just means our taxpayers will be paying for that. So is the region going to give up some other thing that they provide? Or is the regional tax going to go up in order to accommodate this? So that's a really big concern for me. The other thing I want to ask you is about the gas tax money. Now, Grimsby normally gets gas tax money, but am I correct in understanding that since we started this pilot, Grimsby's gas tax money has gone for transportation to the region? Has gone to the region to help pay for transportation?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Vardy, maybe I'll start with the PGT, and I wanted to clarify a couple of items based on your previous comment. So there's two elements of gas tax. There's federal gas tax, which comes from the federal government, which is typically invested in roads, bridges, and other things. Those funds do not flow to Niagara Region to fund transit. Then there is provincial gas tax. Provincial gas tax is only collected by a municipality who pays into transit. In doing so, and yes, by joining, so the town of Grimsby has not received a provincial gas tax payment or revenue that and never has. That was only initiated and the town was only eligible once it signed up and joined the NRT on-demand service. So to be clear, there wasn't an existing provincial gas tax contribution when the town joined NRT on demand and became eligible.
Okay.
One of the conditions of that service and that pooled resource with the region was that the region would acquire any gas tax by any of the affected municipalities, and that goes across all of the municipalities.
And how much money is that?
I will look to Ms. Talbot to provide that on what the portion of gas tax is coming to the town, or how much we collect that could be attributed to the town of Grimsby.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, the rough amount that Grimsby would receive in gas tax would be about $200,000 a year, provided that they spent about $400,000 in transit. So there's a formula that's given to each municipality, and each municipality has to pay a certain portion in levy dollars to receive the full allocation of their provincial gas tax.
So if we were to do this on our own, let's say, we'd be looking at a minimum budget, if we didn't join in, of $600,000 roughly. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct. And currently the service hours that you're receiving would cost Grimsby about $400,000 to operate. But your buy-in on a pilot project is $250,000.
Okay, plus you get the additional 200, right? From our gas tax now. You're getting that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. Yes, we do.
Okay, yes. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. The other question is, I'm very curious to know where our ridership goes. I know that we're one of the highest uses, and that's great. Shows that it's valued by the community, but where are they going? Are the rides mostly locally? Are they connecting? Do you have any data to show, where people are wanting to use the service?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, and perhaps I provide this back to town staff. I know that from our end, NRT on demand, I'm holding something up as if you have this in front of you, but I'm looking at the month-end cumulative statistics for NRT on demand. Those are circulated to, I circulate those to our regional councilors. My transit staff circulate that to your staff. I'm not sure whether or not those are being shared back with town council. If not, I think that's direction. Sounds like it is. What I can say, holding this in front of me, and this is hot off the press, even Councillor Furtick and Mayor Jordan haven't received this email yet. I got this just before the meeting. As of July 31st, in the town of Grimsby, that's over 16,000 rides. I actually have rides by origin and rides by destination. So we can tell from those statistics. Now, I can tell where Grimsby residents are going, which municipalities they're going to. What we don't track is the specific locations that they are going to. So I can't tell you how many people visit the Sobeys or visit the specific locations, but we can say how many of your town residents are going from which municipality to the next.
So how many, just because you have the data, how many are going to where their origin and destination is the same municipality? And what percentage is outside of Grimsby?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, it's actually a 49-51 split. So within the town of Grimsby, 8,000 of the 16,000 rides are within the town of Grimsby. The other half, the other roughly 8,000 trips are to and from outside. So either coming or going into the town of Grimsby or out to other destinations, other municipalities.
Okay, is there one that stands out? Are people going to St. Catharines? Are they going, are there a lot of them going to Hamilton?
And that is not, so through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, right now, NRT on demand, we have not formalized the legal agreement to operate into the Winona crossing in Hamilton. We're hopeful that by September, we have that in place. So right now, the only statistics on Grimsby residents going to Hamilton would be on the Niagara specialized transit service. And I don't have those at my fingertips right
Okay, so where's the other half going? St. Catharines?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, it's into Lincoln, into West Lincoln, St. Catharines, and Welland.
Okay, so, all right. Okay, and then the other thing I just wanted to raise again is the issue of accessibility. Like Councillor Bothwell, I've also heard concerns that for some of our population that has, challenges with respect to inclusion, they're finding it very difficult to access the service. So I think that would be an area where we need to explore to see how we can do better from first point of contact to last, I guess. So that's it for me.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, if I can, because I know Councillor Bothwell raised this as well regarding accessibility. I had a conversation with Councillor Furtick just earlier today around this very issue. He made me aware of some Facebook posts around from Grimsby residents. We intend to reach out to that Facebook page administrator, provide a number of ways in which accessibility and the accessibility features of the NRT on-demand system can be shared more widely with the community, as well as to provide some additional updates on our end about how the service is improving come September, when we hope to introduce a pre-booked service to assist some of those additional riders with that additional option as well. So I did want to make that comment for all of council about accessibility on the current system, and that my team, my staff are reaching out to that Facebook page to provide that additional accessibility context and close that loop with regard to ensuring the community knows how to access the system and how to do that in the best way possible to maximize their positive experience.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Matt. And Heather.
Seeing no further questions, thank you again, Matt.
Jordan, it's Councillor Sharp. I don't know how to raise my hand here.
All right, Councillor Sharp, go ahead.
Thanks. Through Mayor Jordan, I have a question. Matt, you mentioned the Grimsby on-demand costs somewhere in the neighborhood of $400,000, our current service. Can you expand on that?
So through Mr. Mayor, I will ask Ms. Talbot to respond to that. I believe the councillor is referring to the price paid by the town of Grimsby as compared to the value of the service being received under the pooled scenario of the shared service amongst a number of municipalities. Ms. Talbot?
No, let me rephrase. Right now, so in 2020, we approved a budget of $250,000 for the on-demand transit. And on your presentation, it says 0.3 million, but what is the cost if we stay with the on-demand transit?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Talbot.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So when we started the pilot program, what we did was we wanted the buy-in. We looked initially at what the buy-in would be if you wanted to run a conventional transit service, which is what Lincoln was originally doing. It costs roughly $250,000 a year to run one bus through town on a fixed route, which generates about 2,100 hours of vehicle hours a year. Through the pilot program, the region had a budget allocated. So in order to see how transit demand responded within your community, the buy-in was basically equal to if you ran one conventional bus. So currently within Grimsby, you are realizing almost 5,000 service hours a year compared to one conventional bus, which would be 2,000 service hours a year. So based on the efficiencies or the economies of scale through a larger contract, we can reduce the rate. So the actual cost of those 5,000 hours is roughly $400,000. But the buy-in was the $250,000.
So just to be clear, so this year in 2020, we paid $250,000. How much did that cost?
Well, it cost the local budget $250,000, but then the regional budget also subsidized the difference of that portion, and that was in combination.
So what is the subsidy that the region, just for the on-demand transit, not for the just on-demand?
Well, I guess based on how the costs are allocated, we would be subsidizing, the region would be subsidizing about $150,000 of the local transit. Until we had an idea of where the demand was, we couldn't allocate the costs that way.
So if we paid $150,000 more, we could keep the on-demand transit. That's how much it cost us. It's $400,000.
Yes, but you'll be keeping the on-demand transit.
Yeah. So we're currently committed to $250,000, and for $150,000 more is essentially the subsidy that the region is paying. So $400,000, and we can continue to operate our rideshare on-demand transit.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if you mean in isolation outside of the consolidation, I suspect it might cost you more because you wouldn't have the efficiencies and the economies of scale of the larger contract.
So say if we did, rather than going region-wide, say if we just continued to do a West Niagara on-demand transit, like we're not the same as Niagara Falls, we're not the same as St. Catharines and Welland, but we do have similarities to Lincoln, and we do have similarities to West Lincoln and some of that. And so I wonder if we're going to pay an extra $200,000 to move into this one bus drives around 2,000 hours model, but we would pay another $150,000 to stay with this 5,000 hours on-demand transit model. Am I making up numbers here, or am I just?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add a few other components to that, because we've discussed in other areas about these subsidies, about large cities and small cities, and the cost recovery, as was pointed out, earlier, is that for the most part in the smaller communities, the cost recovery on transit is roughly 10 to 20%. 20% is considered very high on a cost recovery in small local communities. In the larger communities, St. Catharines, for example, is 50 to 60% cost recovery because of the population density. So in actual fact, by consolidating the system, you will then, as a network in the smaller communities, realize a higher cost recovery. Your net operating cost will go down. So there are additional benefits to that consolidation that are over and above just that fixed cost.
So what I'm getting at here is that it sounds like that by 2023 we're going to have to pay another $200,000, and it looks like that almost right away we're going to have to pay another $50,000, and it seems like a lot. But you know what? I'll come back to this because I have another question that's on the tip of my tongue. So what about intermunicipal transit? So Grimsby pays, all municipalities pay a certain amount into the regional levy for intermunicipal transit. How much is that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, currently through the regional portion, which is the NST and NRT, the residents of Grimsby are paying $1.2 million, 1.25.
Is that for intermunicipal transit?
That's for the intermunicipal transit of both regional and specialized, conventional and specialized, yes.
Can you separate the specialized transit? How much is it without? So because we're paying a portion towards transit between municipalities. I think it's called Inter-Municipal Transit. How much is that we're paying?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, roughly 15% of the 1.25 would go towards specialized transits, and the remaining 85% would be conventional.
So 85% of 1.2, so that's what, 850 plus 1, so it's $1 million. We're paying through our regional taxes for transit, intermunicipal transit, or just transit. And then go ahead.
Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. And I understand that there is a larger Niagara Regional Transit that may not connect directly to Grimsby. But again, I'd like to point out that our large fixed routes that go between the large transit hubs that service the colleges and universities are very high cost recovery, over 50% for those routes. And the routes of on-demand that are servicing the Niagara West community are only realizing 5 to 10% cost recovery at current.
Okay.
So there is.
So we're paying somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million through our regional levy for transit, and then we're paying another $250,000 for the on-demand transit. So 1.25 million, and then roughly 15%, so it was around 200,000 we're paying for specialized transit. So of that 1.5 million, it looks like we're already paying for about 1.25 million of it, and so that's going to go up to 1.7 million. But I'm just concerned that we're already paying a lot, and now we're going to pay more.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you will be paying more, but your service hours are going from 5,000 to 9,000. So again, the cost increase is directly related to the service hours that will be realized within your community.
Okay, so then this is another question I have. What are service hours? So like, I know that all of our hours are going to be the same. So now we're going to go from 6 till midnight or something. Is it like operator hours or hours that buses are on the road? Or like if St. Catharines has 10 buses on the road and Grimsby only has 1 on the road, how do the service hours get quantified?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, that's a good question. So if St. Catharines has 10 buses and Grimsby has one bus and they're running the same hours, it would be 10 times that hour within St. Catharines boundaries and only 1 times those hours within Grimsby. So they are proportional to the number of vehicles on the road.
Okay, and what about if we have smaller buses in Grimsby?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The smaller buses have a lower operating cost, so that's factored into the overall cost of service, but it's not directly proportioned or allocated. So there is some mixing or blending of those costs.
Okay, so St. Catharines, some of the larger municipalities get the bigger buses and we get the smaller buses, but we pay the same amount for the hours of service?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, not exactly, because again, we factor in the net operating costs. So a conventional bus will cost you about $100 an hour. The on-demand bus will cost you $65 an hour. But if you have a net cost or a cost recovery of 50%, that conventional bus within St. Catharines is only $50 an hour on a net cost. Whereas if you have a $10 cost recovery on the on-demand, your actual cost is $59 an hour.
Okay, so then on this new model, we lose the door-to-door. We don't get what we currently have is like door-to-door. Someone comes to your house and picks you up and takes you somewhere. Now, where do they take you to and where do they pick you up from?
For you, Mr. Mayor, the service would remain the same.
Service would remain door-to-door.
Yes.
And until 2023 or until 2025 or for how long?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll pass this back to Matt because this is more of a service and different answer. So I'll pass it back.
Yes. So through you, Mr. Mayor, the intention is that, to Councillor Sharp's question, that on-demand service has proven to be the next generation of transit service delivery in small municipalities. The service plan lays out that on-demand would be deployed for the foreseeable future in Niagara, with other municipalities actually moving from fixed route to on-demand services. And that will be adding that on-demand complement as a mixed service in other municipalities as well.
Okay, so we're still going to have a door-to-door service because it was well received and I think it's well used. And I think part of the reason is the door-to-door service.
Yes, Councillor, that is our full intention and is laid out in that service plan, that on-demand service that the town of Grimsby has now will prevail for the foreseeable future, whether delivered by Niagara Region or the new commission, depending on where the transit model prevails.
Okay.
Councillor Vardy. Councillor Sharp, you're like at 7 minutes now, so it's Councillor Vardy's turn.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I guess there's just a clarification I'd like to make. When Heather said that the region was subsidizing, in fact, the region is using our gas tax money that would come to us if we were operating our own system. So the region isn't really subsidizing our NRT. It's just now that we have NRT, we're eligible for that provincial gas tax, and we're giving it to the region to support what we're doing. So I'm just looking at, I know Heather said that what we've spent is 400,000. So when I divide that by 16,000, that means we're paying $25 a ride. So I guess I have to ask myself, if we used an Uber model, would it be less expensive for us? I'm not sure how we can benefit by fitting into this broader model, or if a different model might be better for Grimsby. And I think that there's a lot of financial questions an analysis that needs to be undertaken. I would think that before we kind of made a commitment to a broader initiative. Anyways, I would just like to say that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor
Mayor Jordan, I
Vardy.
just have one other question.
All right, Councillor Sharp, go ahead.
Thank you. So I worry about losing our autonomy, town of Grimsby, to this much larger transit commission. Is there any way that we can maintain a Niagara West like committee or a portion of, so that we would have a little more say in what happens here in our municipalities? I think we have more in common with our neighbors in Lincoln and West Lincoln and Pelham and Waynfleet and areas like that than we do with our neighbors in Niagara Falls. Is there any way that we could split the committees or make some kind of change to the governance that gives us a little more say over our own services?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, what I can say on the governance front first is that at the current time, the current proposal, revised proposal, is that every municipality in West Niagara will have a vote on the Transit Commission. So there you have the 5 municipalities in West Niagara, all with a vote on the Transit Commission. And subsequently, the service plan has been detailed to the extent possible to guarantee specific service types, vehicle types, service hours for the foreseeable future. So I think combined with the service commitments, the service level commitments, and the complement of influence, direct influence from elected officials on the board representing West Niagara, that is that's the approach to ensure that there is broad and widespread influence and representation from all of the municipalities in Niagara to ensure that their communities see transit growing in a way that makes sense to them for the foreseeable future.
Okay, and when we have this triple majority vote, can we? Is there any way to get out of it, or is this like once we decide forever and ever we're part of this Niagara Transit Commission?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll let Mr. Fraser speak to the triple majority process.
Thank you. So through the mayor, so as part of the triple majority process, what is actually being affected is a change to the Municipal Act, which would be transferring the power for the operation of local transit services from the lower tier local municipalities to the region. So should triple majority be achieved, it's anticipated that change would take place and that a commission model would move forward. I think that we're all very optimistic that we can address the concerns that have been raised from local communities, and should we proceed, we're hopeful that we'll have a strong support to do so.
Okay, thank you.
And seeing no further questions from council, thank you very much for the presentation, Matt, Heather, and Scott. And we look forward to hearing from you again soon. And especially a go announcement would be nice, Matt.
Our fingers are crossed, Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
All right, we just need a mover and seconder to have a good evening, everyone. And we just need a mover and seconder to receive the delegation. Moved by Councillor Vane, seconded by Councillor Vardy. Moved by Councillor Vane, seconded by Councillor Vardy. Resolved that the delegation from the Niagara region be received. All in favor? That's carried.
Yeah.
Moving next, we're moving to our consent agenda. 6.1 CIO 2112. Oh, Councillor Bothwell.
Can I please lift the referred matters list?
All right, that's so noted. All right, so I need a mover in second. Oh, Councillor Ritchie.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Jordan, if I could please lift, I believe it's item, just pulling up the agenda here, sorry. 6B, is it? It's the report on governmental affairs.
Intergovernmental relations, yes.
Yes, please.
2111, that's
Yes, please.
been lifted. All right, so need a mover and seconder for CAO report 2112. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Cadwell. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Cadwell. Resolved that the Committee of the Whole hereby approves the following item and that the various consent item be approved on the recommendation as contained therein. CAO 2112 Niagara Transit Governance Revised Strategy reflecting Phase 1 municipal feedback. All in favor? That's carried.
Yay.
All right. Now we're moving to Administration and Finance 6.1B, CAO 2111, Intergovernmental Relations. CAO or Councillor Ritchie?
Some questions?
Thank you. I just wanted to bring this up. I think if this report went unnoticed, I don't know if it slipped by our residents or not, but I want to thank the CEO for this report. As you can see, a lot of our intergovernment relations started back in 2019 at the AMO conference when we never even had a CAO, and we made some delegations there and we moved forward. And when we look at the grant tracker and so forth, without the hospital and without the Peach King Center, we've accumulated about almost $1 million worth of grant money. And one of the items that I didn't actually see on this list because we don't know the cost is it's actually probably over $1 million when you incorporate the cost of the signage and the stop signs of the Grimsby Diamond that we were successful in lobbying for and the changes there. So to the public and to all our councillors, every opportunity we have to speak about the town of Grimsby in a positive note, I think that we need to take those opportunities because it's really starting to show. When I first got elected, you always heard about, grant money that Lincoln used to receive all the time. And it's nice to see that we're receiving a lot of this grant money as well, and especially with the hospital that's for all the communities, but also with the Peach King Center. So I just wanted to make sure that we took a little bit of time to acknowledge what all the councillors and staff especially have been doing for the community. Thank you.
All right, seeing no further questions or comments, need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Cadwell. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Cadwell. Resolved that report CAO 21-11 Intergovernmental Relations dated August 3rd, 2021 be received. All in favor? That's carried.
Yay. Okay.
Now we move to 6.1C, Council Referred Matters List. Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I would reach out to the CAO to provide an update on the whistleblowing policy, which has been outstanding since February of 2020 with a request to go back to staff in March 2021. I see that it's now targeted for Q4. I would ask if we can have an interim report on actions that have been taken to date, and if that can be provided at the next meeting. Also, I would just like to request of the clerk an update on the Indigenous land acknowledgement statement. I'm just a little bit as well frustrated that that's taken quite so long to, it's been over a year as well on working on that, and considering our commitment to the Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities, I would have hoped to have seen something by now. So if we can get an update on that, that would be much appreciated. Thank you. I've got the community asking where we're at with that. I have 2 members of the community quite interested in finding out the status. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Councillor, through you to Councillor Bothwell, I agree on the land acknowledgement. Our team has been working with the region. There is, they've consulted a number of the Indigenous communities within Niagara. They're very close to a land acknowledgement. There's actually a report coming to Regional Council, we believe no later than mid-September. It's at that point that will be shared with us, and we will use that across the 12 municipalities. So there's been a lot of consultation with the Indigenous communities within Niagara to make sure we got it right the first time. And that's what's taken the time, but you should see that by September. On the whistleblowing policy, you sent us back to talk to employees across the organization. The team didn't want to do that in the midst of a pandemic, but there's going to be a number of focus groups happening. And once we can get back to in-person meetings in October and November, and we'll report back. So going back to the employees is we're going to try and reach out to all employees across the corporation. And we're going to try to do that when you can have in-person meetings. So.
Sorry, so can we have a commitment to that starting in September, since council is going back to in-person meetings in September? Can we have a commitment to have a report on the status of that action, CAO?
For you, Mayor, the safety of our employees is the utmost. We're going to hear about the advancement of going beyond step 3 on August 6th. Once we hear that we're clear to do more in-person things, and we probably don't see that till after Labor Day, we will be providing those focus groups in late September, early October, if everything is good with the pandemic. We will be reaching out to the public, the employees. And that's what we've stated in this update. But we're not doing that until we can meet with them in person.
Thank you, CAO. Now I just need a mover and seconder to receive the council referred matters list. Moved by Councillor Dunstall, second by Councillor Ritchie. Moved by Councillor Dunstall, second by Councillor Ritchie. Resolved that the council referred matters list be received. All in favor? That's carried.
Aye.
Now moving to report Administration and Finance, report 7.1A, municipal election planning. Sarah?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So elections is coming up, and I wanted to start with an introductory report that highlights some changes, background information, and key dates for council's information. There's going to be more detailed reports coming as things progress, but tonight I wanted to focus on the engagement planning piece to kick things off. We're hoping with the 2022 elections to have more public engagement and participation. And as stated in the report, branding unique to Grimsby election represents an opportunity to be recognized and provide a consistent message. So we're hoping to get council's approval on an election logo that can be utilized on all communications, including ads and notices. So with that, we're open to all suggestions. Thanks.
Councillor Frank.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. Sarah, great report. Thank you very much. I see you're right on top of things, and I guess because there's a lot of questions out there as to when we start kicking things off for the next elections. And this document really gives us a really good overview all the way out to the actual election day and beyond. I wanted to talk about logos. I mean, are you looking for a consensus of opinion on the logos that you submitted so far? Or how did you want to go about that? I mean, you want us to send you emails with our choices, or because you submitted a few, are they limited, or can we vote on the ones you have?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So first of all, Thank you to the parks staff because they've been great in designing the logos. We do have 3 options tonight. We're hoping to kind of maybe do a straw vote and come down to 1 logo that could be used. We are now approaching elections quickly, so I do want to finalize on a logo if possible tonight.
Thank you.
So would a straw vote be okay?
Yeah, well, okay with me.
Councillor Vardy.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Sarah, thanks, Sarah. Nice job. Generally speaking, I like all the ones with the trees. But I guess for me, well, I got a couple questions. One, I know a lot of people last time asked, when is election day? So this says municipal election 2022, but it doesn't give a date of when the election is. And so I would like to see something like that included if we're going to be using this quite a bit. And then the other question I have is on option 3, there looks to be like, I guess an orange with a green leaf on top. And I'm wondering, is that our logo? Did we choose that logo for Grimsby? Is that, because that looks something new to me.
The peach.
The peach, yeah.
It's a peach. Okay, but is that our logo?
That's not our logo, but we do use the peach quite a bit, and we thought it does represent Grimsby a bit, so we thought we would try out with the peach. It can be changed, right? Like we can easily change it to a circle with a check mark. It can be customized, so it's just an idea.
Yeah. I mean, I guess for me, it's kind of odd using it if it isn't like our official logo. So yeah, I'd probably prefer a check, but, and also the inclusion of a date, because it'll help people focus. So there you go. Thanks, Sarah.
Councillor Cadwell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Jordan. And thanks for the report, Sarah. Good report. Page 4 of 5, under Q4 of 2022, down in the paragraph, it says October 24th, 2022, voting day. Polls will open 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. So thanks again. It's in the report.
Mayor Jordan?
Sorry, if I could just interject. I was looking ahead to the logo options, and that's where I'd like to see the date. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that was understood. All right, Councillor Sharp, you'd like to speak? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. To Sarah Kim and our park staff, I think the report is great. I think the logos are great. I like the peach. For those that might not be familiar with Grimsby, but like we used to grow peaches and strawberries and all the stone fruits, and it's a common thing that we use. So I think it's appropriate to have it on our logo. Anyways, I like it. And my question is about online voting and telephone voting. Is that still going to happen this year?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So there will be a report regarding alternative voting methods, which would include the options. We do want to do a quick public engagement on Let's Talk Grimsby to see what the preferred methods are for voting. So that will come in a later, probably in the fall.
Okay, and then we'll hear more about the period, because do we get to vote early if it's online, or is there an early poll?
Yes, all that will come in a later report, but there are advanced polling. We will be recommending on advanced polling dates. So that will be a decision for council at a later time.
Anyhow, great report. And for the logos, I like option 3. I'm on my phone today, so I don't know how to do the straw vote, but I like 3.
Yeah, Your decision's noted, Councillor Sharp. So Councillor Frick?
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. Sarah, I prefer option one, but I'd like you to put a peach in there instead of the tick mark. And the date, as Councillor have already mentioned, is probably a good idea as well. I might say that the Grimsby peach is actually very famous across the country. As a matter of fact, I received a couple of emails this morning or texts from my family on the East Coast saying they were really enjoying the Grimsby peaches that they're buying on the East Coast. So Grimsby is well known, at least on the East Coast. And the peach is synonymous. So let's maybe we'll get the peach as Councillor Sharp suggested. And I'd like to see option one with a peach in it. And the trees are there, which is great, covers the Carolinian piece. And then the peach in there will cover the fruit piece in agriculture. I like that. Maybe that's my choice.
Thank you, Councillor Frick. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Vardy?
Yes, just for the pictures of the trees, can we make sure they're Carolinian trees? Because we're certainly trying to promote that. Thank you. But I like any option with the tree, and I'm fine with the peach, so.
Great. Yeah. Sarah's going to go through and conduct the straw vote.
All right, if you could choose from option 1 to 3, that'd be great. Councillor Bothwell?
Option 3 with the date, as Councillor have already noted.
Yes. Councillor Dunstall?
I would agree, option 3 with the date.
Councillor Frake?
Well, I already said, I like option 1 with the date and the peach.
Councillor Cadwell?
Option 3 with the date. Thank you.
Councillor Ritchie?
Option 3, please.
Councillor Sharp?
Option 3.
Councillor Vane?
Option 3.
Councillor Vardy?
Option 3 with the date and Carolinian tree background.
Mayor Jordan?
I echo Councillor Vardy and several other councillors. All right, we need a mover and seconder. Councillor Frake, Councillor Vane. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Vane. Resolved that report TC 21-06, 2022 municipal election planning dated August 3rd, 2021 be received, and that option 3 with the date and tree be supported as the official elections logo. All in favor? That's carried.
Yay.
Moving to report 7.1B, FCR 21-06, Grimsby Fire Department 2021 semi-annual information report. Chief Thompson, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I hope I can keep you as entertained as that straw vote. That was well done. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd like to start off by saying I'm fairly pleased presenting this report to all of you this evening, as my original report was another 14 pages long before I amended it and submitted it for approval last week. Shortly, I'll discuss why I'm fairly pleased with this report. As indicated, this report is to keep Council abreast of the fire department activities and information which will assist in future decision making. Emergency incidents have increased approximately 14% in comparison to 2020 this time last year. Data has identified this is attributed to the public and businesses returning to some normalcy due to the pandemic. We are estimating emergency incident response to pre-pandemic in the range of 600 incidents this year. Earlier this year, information on response times and specifically the suburban area of town was requested. I provided a high-level overview of NFPA 1720 and the deployment of fire suppression responses to fires only. This is only to fires. As indicated in Appendix B, overall, Grimsby Fire Department is doing very well to meet the NFPA standard on each demand zone. We absolutely know there is an opportunity for improvement, And this is why and where a fire master plan will assist us in providing that information needed. I'd like to talk briefly about open air fires as this new bylaw was approved this year. We currently and will always have some challenges of meeting everyone's satisfaction and expectation on open air fires. Although, as reported, a 27% decrease in open air fire incidents to date that volunteers would respond to, a process to ensure residents register their open air fire through a permit, and the very few minor issues our public education and prevention division have had to deal with, we're saying this is a very good accomplishment to date and will continue to monitor this data and provide information into the future. As for the Grimsby Regional Training Center, the recent announcement of the Ontario Fire College closure not only reaffirmed that we construct a facility to train our firefighters at the right time, especially with construction costs of materials today, as this now allows us to continue to train our firefighters to professional standards in our own town, saving us tens of thousands of dollars on travel and expenses for courses out of town. The center will continue to allow us to train other fire service and private industry that need a proper training for facilities and props. We are somewhat disappointed on the fire marshal's office expanding regional training centers across the province, as this may take away from some of our programming. Though we understand why so many other municipalities are endeavoring to create what we've had for the last 4 years. In Q1 and Q2 of this year, the pandemic did create cancellation of our courses, though in early September, we'll be hosting all our other approved courses for the rest of the year. As indicated in the report, we are also hosting other private to government industries courses that will offset OFC cancellations. The continued partnership with the Ontario Fire College has proven itself with the installation of approximately $50,000 worth of fire alarm to commercial cooking equipment from the Ontario Fire College Training Lab into our prevention lab at the GRTC. This will enable us to host courses both for fire and private industry. With our continued collaboration with the Ontario Fire College and Fire Marshal and the initiative for shared fire service, the potential for this facility will be exciting and rewarding for Grimsby into the future. Briefly under administration, we have identified all the work we are currently undertaking and working towards. Though I wanted council to know in Q4, we will be recruiting 8 new firefighters to bring our complement in line with the approved 56 firefighters in accordance with the ENR bylaw. We'll be looking at a date very early in Q1 of 2022 and partnering with Lincoln Fire and their recruitment to host training together. There will be no budget impact for 2022. To finish off, in my responsibility to keep all of you informed, I started off why I was fairly pleased to presenting this report and that I had amended it before submission. At the time of my initial report, I was going to discuss the challenges that we are facing today in the future due to lack of provincial and federal funding to fire services across the province of Ontario, and also to discuss the town how they depreciate specialized apparatus like aerials and pumps. The purchase of a new specialized apparatus usually has an end of life in Grimsby of 20 years. The 14 pages I removed from my original report was specifically on apparatus. The reason I removed it was due to our continued collaborative initiative, Lincoln Fire, and a fire master plan that we will be proceeding with through shared service. The fire master plan will provide a detailed report involving many stakeholders, including council, and through a third-party professional with recommendations following best financial practice, industry standards, and applicable legislation and regulations. And I didn't want to take away from that valuable and evidence-based information and confuse council. Though I am raising the concern today because of last week, our aerial truck broke down and it is still broken down today for a basic part that should be in stock by a supplier if the apparatus wasn't over 15 years old, and our aerial is over 20. Many medium-sized fire services, as defined by underwriters in Ontario, depreciates apparatus to 15 years. As I said, the Fire Master Plan will provide council with all the data and evidence necessary to make the correct and informed decisions. I wanted to keep you all aware of this, though, going into 2022 and 2023. Though I must say I was very pleased to recently hear the federal government approved the Canada Community Building Fund benefit eligible to fire stations, as this will be important moving forward. Mayor and Council, I truly want to thank you for all your support as Acting Fire Chief. As this is probably my last report as we move into shared services into the fall. It has been a very interesting, exciting, and emotional 23 months as I finish my time as Acting Fire Chief, but I truly look forward to serving my role as Deputy Chief under my new team of Chief Hudson and Chief Blake, and I thank you again. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Chief Thompson. Councillor Frank.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. Chief Thompson, I must admit, we will miss your reports. We will miss you. I'm sure that hopefully we will see you in and out of council and giving us reports here and there, but you will be missed. Your face is beginning to be synonymous with the town. So, and thank you for the report. It was really well done, and I appreciate all the service you've given us in the past number of years. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And I know you're not going anywhere, but I mean, I appreciate the service you've given us as the fire chief. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Councillor Vardy.
I just want to say the same thing. Thank you very much, Chief Thompson, Acting Chief Thompson, for your contribution in the last 18 months. It's greatly appreciated. I have to say, you know, I've talked to you on many issues and have appreciated your assistance and the information that you've provided. So again, thank you very much. I'm glad you're not going anywhere too soon. So just say your contribution has been greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Cadwell.
Mayor Jordan, if I could just get in the queue for a next, please.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Jordan, through you to Acting Chief Thompson. Great report. Just got a couple comments on it, Chief. Are we running a duty crew like we've done in the past year or two? And I just reading through the report and seeing that your call volume is up a little bit. Is there a duty crew or is there, I know it's August now, but was there plans for that? Did COVID maybe have some, I'm sure COVID probably had some issues with you having the staff, say a pump crew. Anyways, Chief, if you want to just elaborate on that, I've just got a couple of quick things.
Yes, through you, Mayor. Council Cadwell, we are back to our weekend standbys.
Okay.
We're seeing the call volumes increase a bit. We're ensuring that the weekends are covered with the crew. So there is a crew on standby that will respond to the fire hall and manage it, pump crew.
Good. Just like the old days. Okay. Yeah, the other thing too, Chief, I want to say really congratulations on the great work that you and your team did accomplishing, getting the fire marshal, the school in Gravenhurst, the amenities that you guys were able to get. That's fantastic. Just reading through the report and seeing all those alarm systems on the wall. I mean, that's just such a great way to be able to teach people how they work and everything else to that. But good work done there too, Chief. And the other thing is, I was just reading through the report. Glad to see you're looking to get your complement back to 56, because that's very important that we have enough volunteer firefighters to respond. So yeah, good work again, Chief. And lastly, great job, Chief. Really appreciate your dedication to the community in the fire service. And you've really brought forward a great vision for GFD. And we'll see you around. You'll be busy, I know that. Well done, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Sharp.
Thanks, Mayor Jordan. To Chief Thompson, I just have a question about our new fire permits. How many permits have we issued?
Through you, Mayor, I'm just looking at the report. We've issued approving 264. We had 350, but only 264 have been approved.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad to see that people are taking the opportunity to have small, safe fires in their yard. And I'm really happy that we've allowed people to do that. And it's just good to see that there's 350 people asking about it, and 260 some odd people who are now allowed to have like a 2-foot tire rim fire pit in their yard. And I think that's a great thing that we can do outside. So thanks, and great work.
Thank you.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you. Through the mayor, Chief Thompson, great report. I just wanted to say it's interesting to see the open air complaints go down. I don't know if you guys, if some of the complaints are being cross-referenced with the actual permits, or whether people just aren't complaining. But it's maybe it's COVID, maybe it's something, but it's very interesting, and that's great to see. It's looks like it's going to be a benefit for the community, for those people who don't abuse it for some time to come. I also wanted to congratulate you on the training hall there and getting the equipment from the fire college. As you know, I think it's going to be a busy place once COVID's done. The province is once again talking about certification through all the departments, and it's great to see that Grimsby is taking a good role on that. And most of our, if not all of our staff are all certified to the provincial standards. So that's really good to see, which if this does happen, you're going to see an influx of people wanting to get into these regional training centers. So I just wanted to thank you for all the time. I'm a believer that this won't be your last report, and we'll see how things work in the future. But thank you very much. It's a great report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, thank you so much, Chief Thompson. I just want to just reiterate that your dedication and exemplary service over the last 23 months has been second to none, and spending time with you at the EOC up at the Station 2 has been quite an interesting experience, and it's been even though it's been a necessary thing, it's certainly spending time with you has been enjoyable, and we know you won't be a stranger. Thank you.
Thank you.
I need a mover and seconder to receive the report. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Frake. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved that report FCR 21-06 dated August 3rd, Grimsby Fire Department 2021 Semi-Annual Information Report 2021 be received. All in favor? That's carried.
Yay.
Moving to section 7.2A, information request from Councillor Sharp. Need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Sharp, second by Councillor Bain. Any discussion?
If I could speak to it, Mayor Jordan.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Sharp.
Okay, just to be brief, not very many changes. Small change, that notice of motion, I believe it was already covered in our procedural bylaw as a motion if it's on the floor. And if it's not on the floor, it would require notice. But I just hope that we can approve this tonight. Thanks all.
Seeing no further discussion, moved by Councillor Sharp, second by Councillor Bain. Whereas councillors have been filing information requests on a variety of matters during meeting proceedings, and whereas information requests are silent in the town's procedure bylaw number 20-65, and whereas Robert's Rules of Order section 33 speaks to information requests, and whereas information requests are not required to have a seconder and are not debatable, and whereas in some instances information requests that have been made have resulted in financial costs for the town of Grimsby, and whereas contributing to accountability and transparency when a request is brought forward that there is a financial consideration, these requests should be made by way of motion. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the procedural bylaw be amended to address information requests with the following parameters. An information request can be made when there is a further inquiry about a report or agenda item under consideration, request staff to follow up on a matter that was previously considered or presented to council. B, an information request cannot be made that would incur any type of unbudgeted financial implication to the town of Grimsby, bind the town of Grimsby in any way. Councillors be encouraged to engage with staff should they have questions on agenda items in advance of meetings. Councillor Vardy.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I guess for me, there's a couple of things that I see here is that it seems like information requests can only be made about matters that have already been considered by council or have come to council. And I think that one, that hamstrings us. And two, I suspect, so I mean, I can't support it without that amendment. And secondly, the last paragraph prior to now therefore it be resolved, whereas contributing to the accountability and transparency, when a request is brought forward, there's a financial consideration. These requests should be made by way of a motion. That is not in the bylaw. That would need to be incorporated into the body of therefore be it resolved. So those are the two issues that I have with this as it stands. So I can't support it as it stands. Thank you.
All right, I read the resolution, recorded vote.
Councillor Bothwell,
No.
Councillor Dunstall,
Yes.
Councillor Frake,
No.
Councillor Cadwell,
Yes.
Councillor Ritchie,
Yes.
Councillor Sharp,
Yes.
Councillor Vane,
Yes.
Councillor Vardy,
Nope.
Mayor Jordan.
No.
That's carried.
All right, we're moving to Public Works, Section 9.2. Resolution by Councillor Vane to develop a plan to address traffic issues across the town. Councillor Vane, did you want to speak first on that?
Yes, this is one of two motions I actually have coming up. One is a notice motion for later tonight. But the idea or the intent behind this one is that for years now, even before we were elected, there's been much discussion about traffic safety in our town, which was only hyper intensified by the pandemic, with some drivers forgetting that there is rules to the road. We've had a number of complaints. Every councillor has, even before we got elected. I remember talking to other members of council, and we talked about many issues back then, everything from noise to speeding to running stop signs to whatever else. So what I have put forward in this particular motion is to have the town staff create a holistic plan for the town of ways we can address it, like to take specific areas, for example, I'll use Roberts Road or Dorchester or Lake Street or Winston Road. All of those have major issues, and have the town look at ways that we can address these. I know Councillor Bothwell is putting forward a motion tonight to lower the speed on Winston Road, which I support, but we do need to look at more holistic approaches as opposed to, you know, like a lot of residents get frustrated because we keep telling them why we can't do something. So all I'm saying is let's find ways that we can do things that aren't going to break the bank. Having said that, not to confuse this, I have a notice of motion coming up tonight for next meeting in which I'm proposing a pilot project to have the town hire paid duty constables to do specific radar and traffic controls in our town for a 6-month period. I'm proposing $50,000, which would work out to about 8 to 10 shifts a month of an officer dedicated for a whole shift doing radar or traffic control, whether it's running.
Just Councillor Vane, procedurally, it's incorrect to comment on your notice of motion at this time.
No, the only reason I'm doing that, Mr. Mayor, is because I don't want people to get confused. I'm just trying to explain there's 2 separate motions here. So this one tonight is merely to address what we as a town can do. Sorry, I should be more specific that way. So I'm saying tonight, let's just address, I would like to see town staff address ways that we can deal with it. and then looking beyond the police is what I'm trying to say, I guess. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to vary off there. Thank you.
It's all right. All right. Any further discussion? Well, I have Councillor Vane as the mover. Councillor Bothwell, go ahead.
I would just, I know Brandon's on our call here. I'm just a little confused on this motion. I guess there was the traffic safety education workshop that was held with council on July 26th that I don't believe that information was released to the public, but I think it was comprehensive enough that it would give the public the guidelines as to how Public Works makes their determinations within the needs that are brought forward to them with respect to traffic issues across the town. And I think that would be very valuable to share. I don't know whether this motion would be more fruitful than that, in the sense that developing a holistic, comprehensive plan to develop traffic issues across town. Each area has its unique, specific type of conflicts and issues, and I know that Public Works has to individually assess each of those, and it would be very difficult, I think, for them to come across with a broad stroke to say, here's, like, they already have their toolbox and toolkits of all of these things, speed bumps, the traffic manual of how to do the rationale and the justification and all that, and they use those tools when they assess each of the complaints and issues that come forward individually. So I don't know if they can come up with a broad stroke holistic plan for all of the town. I would just suggest that more educationally, the information that they're using for the assessment that was presented to council also be presented to the public and posted publicly. And I think we just present an education package to the public as to how Public Works assesses their each of the issues brought to them. So I'm kind of in conflict of supporting this because I think it can be dealt with in a different manner. Thank you.
Brandon, did you want to comment?
Sure. Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, to both Councillor Bothwell and Councillor Vane. So yes, we did have an opportunity to speak to council in a closed session with respect to a traffic safety program and what we do. I think the information was provided in closed session, but I don't think there's any reason why we can't share portions of that information in a positive way to the public. I think the easiest solution for that is developing some form of website where we can send the inquiries from the public to, which outlines some of our practices. So I do agree with the councillors in terms of those comments, that's something that we can certainly look towards in the future. I'm happy to look at ways we can enhance our program. I think, again, we've explained to council kind of, as Councillor Bothwell mentioned, our toolbox and the methods that we use. Can we provide a better means of communication of those means to the public? I kind of agree with that. I think it's fair to ask staff to come back later this year with some information with respect to some additional enhancements that we could make to our program that could be considered as part of next year's budget. So I think that's a fair request, but and I would be prepared to do that. So if we're looking at additional driver feedback signage, education campaigns, and enhancing our cooperation with the NRP, I'm happy to do that. And in the long term too, I think I had mentioned this in the closed session, just with respect to doing a better job of communicating what we're doing on a regular basis with council. So how could we communicate, a state of the union essentially, or a regular update to council in terms of how our program's functioning, how many complaints we're getting, what those complaints involve, and stuff like that. So I think that going forward, we could certainly support that as well. So hopefully that provides some clarification.
Thank you, Brandon. Councillor Frick.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I tend to agree with Councillor Bothwell. I think that that closed session was very informative. There's no question about that. A lot of great information. I don't know if you can edit it a little bit and maybe somehow get that particular presentation and the content of it out to the general public, because I think they would learn a lot from what was in it. And I think if there's a lot of information in that closed session report, so you need to tone it down somewhat. In terms of the resolution that Councillor Vane is trying to pass, I do agree with what he's trying to do. However, I think it is a ginormous task for you, Brandon, and your team to do, because you're talking about doing the whole of Grimsby, and there's a lot of that's a huge challenge. I think it would probably better use your time in prioritizing parts of the town where you see the biggest opportunities or the biggest problems, regarding traffic, and zoning on those, and maybe somehow prioritize where the issues, where the problems are. And I'm not telling you how to do your job, but I'm sure you have a way of doing that. So in that resolution somewhere, we need to kind of prioritize. You can't do everything all at once. I mean, it's just impossible. And there are some areas which are more dangerous and more, have more traffic issues than others. And I think so. I think you really have to look at analyzing the town and just maybe prioritize and divide the town up into sections and prioritize it somehow or other. That's my suggestion, and hopefully it's helpful. Thank you.
Councillor Cadwell, then Councillor Sharp.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Jordan. I would just ask the presenter of the notice of motion if they would consider, I like the motion, but they would consider removing the last part of the last line where it says consideration no later than the beginning of Q4. The reason I'm saying that, because just hearing our Director of Public Works, Mr. Wortman, give his comments on that, which I think and again, what we learned from the workshop, staff doing that, that was a great workshop for information. So yeah, I'm just wondering if the presenter would just eliminate the last part of the last line, because then I would support it too. Just eliminate the time frame, because the director knows, we had a great understanding, great meeting with workshops. That's all. Thank you.
I'm agreeable with that, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councillor Sharp.
Thanks, Mayor Jordan. I've had some discussions with town staff about our recent workshop on traffic safety and traffic calming, and what I'd like to see, something, if it's possible, is like something on our webpage where residents can go to find some of the information that we were just given in that workshop. And it'd be nice to have potentially something interactive where you could go and say, I believe I have a speeding problem or a parking problem, and then you could potentially click what can I do about it? And that could give you some options, who you can talk to, and if it could give essentially what can be done about this. And I just think that would be a good way, first of all, to inform the residents. Second of all, to give them a place where they can report these things. And then, unfortunately, there might be some speeding issues that are difficult for us to enforce. And you can put a sign up all you want, but certain speeders, it's often our neighbors, and sometimes it's us, and we don't realize it, but we're just driving over the speed limit. And we can't put a constant patrol on the street to stop that. So in some cases, people have to understand that the occasional speeder or the occasional parking issue, there might not be anything we can do, but at least to help them understand what triggers certain responses to certain traffic issues, and why they have been triggered in certain areas and why they may not be triggered in other areas. And that just gives residents an understanding and lets them know that we're not ignoring them. I mean, I'm definitely hearing and listening to all of these concerns, but it helps to explain why we've done speed bumps in a certain area and why we haven't done speed bumps in another area. And if we could put something together, that'd be something I appreciate, that I could relay to the residents. Would that be included as part of this?
I get if that was question through you,
Brandon?
that was directed to me. I guess I'm the line of the resolution that is sticking out to me is compile a holistic, comprehensive plan to address the traffic issues. I think that's kind of what I'm stumbling with. If council would
Could we include as part of our plan? Could we include like a public interactive information? That's a plan. If we interpret it that way.
So through you, Mr. Mang, what I was suggesting is possibly what we could do is bring a summary report similar to what we outlined as part of our Traffic 101 education workshop to council for a summary of the program, kind of that could be used as public consumption, with some recommendations to council that staff will be doing in terms of the enhancements to the program going forward. If that's favorable, just the compile a holistic, comprehensive plan is I guess where I'm kind of stumbling with. So if we can reword that resolution to some form of provide a report to council outlining what the town staff or the town does in terms of their traffic safety program. I think I could support that a little bit better.
Mayor Jordan, I'd like to put forward a friendly amendment to the motion to say create a public education information strategy instead of compile a holistic, comprehensive plan. To create a public education and information strategy to address. So that gives Brandon that kind of guidance to do what he was just asking for. If Councillor Vane is amenable to that change.
Councillor Vane?
Mayor Jordan, yeah, I have no problem with that, but I would like to include something that Councillor Frakes said as well about prioritizing. I think we do need to do something to show that we are taking this seriously, that there is some streets, I agree with Councillor Frake, that are more problematic, let's say, than others. So at least if I just want to at least move forward. If I'm always a believer, if we make one correction, then we're one step forward. So I would like to see Councillor Frake's comment in there incorporated as well, if he's okay with that. Thank you.
So that was essentially prioritizing problem locations in the municipality. I think that's what.
To the comments that Councillor Bothwell made as well.
Yes.
I would support that resolution if that's included.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess the only difficulty in that is it's difficult to prioritize if we're basing our response in response to the public based on complaint based. We are running those complaints through our warrant criteria and identifying whether those warrants meet those criteria, or whether those complaints or the issues that the residents are perceiving meet those warrants or not. So it'd be difficult for us to try to prioritize which ones are which ones are and which ones aren't, because we essentially are doing that through our warrant criteria. So again, we're taking those complaints, we're reviewing them as part of our normal process, and we're identifying if our warrant criteria is met, then it gets advanced to the next stage. If the warrant criteria isn't met, then we will do other types of monitoring in place. So,
well, could we change that to highlighting problem locations, just so, because there are certain locations, I guess, that would be.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. Sorry through you, Mr. Mayor. I think in terms of it all comes back to how we are communicating this back to the public. So I think with that feedback, I think that's, if you give me some flexibility, then I will bring some recommendations back to the council in terms of how I can better communicate, or how we can better communicate that to the public.
All right. So if the amenders are happy with those and the mover. I think we're getting somewhere. So,
I'm good.
I'm good with it.
all right. So I'll read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Vane, second by Councillor Frake. Whereas the Public Works Department dedicates significant time specifically to traffic concerns that are brought, such as the Grimsby Beach area, Nellis Dorchester area, Place Polonaise, and the deployment of radar boards throughout the town. And whereas Public Works Department collects annual traffic data to assess whether town streets meet traffic calming warrants that are in accordance with council's traffic calming policy from a safety, risk, and financial perspective, so that streets do not meet these traffic calming warrants are brought forward to council for additional investigation and possible implementation of traffic calming measures. And whereas the Public Works Department is bringing a traffic education workshop to council on July 26, 2021 to provide information on traffic levels of service, what and how traffic data is collected and analyzed, and how this information is used to assess the requirement for traffic calming measures. Therefore, be it resolved that staff, based on the outcomes of the traffic safety education to council on July 26, 2021, outlining the town's safety program, including public information, strategic plan, and highlighting problem locations. That will be presented to council for consideration at a later date. All in favor? That's carried. All right, moving to resolution 9.2B, Councillor Vardy, school zone, Main and Nellis area, Main and Governor's area. I have Councillor Vardy as the mover. Councillor Frake as a seconder. Discussion?
Well, if I may, I'd just like to point out that there are two schools. While I was told this was a school route and not a school zone, there are in fact two schools, one at Main and Nellis, and another at, Main and Nellis, and another at Governor's in Main, and with largely a sort of preschool population. And I think, given that, there's a huge amount of traffic in that area. We've already seen, sadly, a fatality in that area. And as you know, I've proposed amendments to the light at Main and Nellis. But I really think for the safety of residents and pedestrians, given that there are no sidewalks on either of Governor's or Main and Nellis, or Nellis Avenue there, then I think it's really only wise to identify these as school zones. Thank you.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, through Mayor Jordan. I do have a question here with this. Seeing how we just went through an educational seminar on for all of these types of these topics, is there a staff report accompanying this that recommends this? Was there anything that any hard data or criteria put together to indicate, or any requests from the school board or anyone to put the school safety zone in? I guess that question, I would ask that question of our to our director of operations, I guess, Brandon, was there any report, or would you recommend a report for this type of thing? I think when we did our education seminar, I think that one thing that we learned is that just going around changing speed limits and changing things throughout the town without any warrants, it could actually cause potential liability to the town. So I'm not sitting there saying that I'm 100% against this, but without a report to justify it, I won't be able to support this.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So I was actually going to make that suggestion, is if we could amend the resolution that worded in a way, such a way that the matter be directed back to staff for further review and a report and recommendation provided to council. That would give me an opportunity to review the situation, the request from the councillor, and provide our recommendation back to council. Then they can make a decision based on the information that we've provided.
Thank you. So I'd like to put a motion on the floor to refer this back to staff.
If I may, I'm happy to make a friendly amendment to
We
it.
have a referral on the floor.
If you don't mind, please.
Point of order. There's a
Yes,
referral on the floor.
There's a referral on the floor, so the referral takes precedence.
I will second the motion.
Recorded vote, please.
So just for clarification, it's a referral back to staff to look at everything that was in the body of the resolution. Is that correct, Brandon?
Yeah, I'm through you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, that works for me as well. Yeah.
All right.
Can we put a date on this, please? So that we get a staff report at our next meeting, because schools will be open again in September. We don't have a lot of time to deal with this. This is an important issue. It's a safety issue. And according to the information that we were given, school zones automatically meet the warrants. So I have no problem getting a report from Brandon, but I don't want this to be an indefinite referral. We can refer it, that's fine, and for a report at the next meeting.
Can you do it by then, Brandon?
I think that'd be very difficult to try to get a report turned around within one meeting. That being said, I don't want, I can get into the details if you want, but there are some concerns with the resolution I put forward. One of them being this is a regional road. Some of the areas are regional roads, so it requires the regional input and their buy-in. So again, I would just ask if you give me the opportunity to review that in full detail, I can provide the appropriate information back to council, and you can make a fulsome decision with all the information at hand.
Can we make sure then that it has an option that if the region doesn't concur, which I can't imagine it wouldn't, because it has supported all other school zones that are on Main Street, that we at least look at Governors and Nellis as school zones and not just school routes, because there are schools there.
Mr. Mayor, again, we're talking about, it looks like private schools. I don't know if there's taxes to the individual schools. The school on Governor's School on Road there is Governor's and Nellis Street there are private institutions. And that's why maybe this is a road as opposed to a zone. So again, I like to see that staff do their work and refer it back to them.
If I may ask, Councillor, through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Ritchie, do only public schools deserve safety? Don't all of our residents deserve safety?
Councillor Vardy, I'm not going to get into a debate.
Okay, we can stop the cross-talking now because we'll have staff look into it and staff will give the report back. So moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Vane, resolve that the matter regarding the school zone Main and Nellis area, Main and Governor's area be referred back to staff for a report at the August 23rd meeting. That's a recorded vote.
Mr. Mayor, if we could have it to August 23rd or at their earliest convenience, as we've already heard from our staff that they will not be able to get this accomplished by the 23rd. They said it would be very difficult.
All right, well, how's September 7th, Brandon?
Does there have to be a date tied to it, Mr. Mayor?
Well, if we put it earliest convenience,
I will do my best with my
Yeah.
team to get it back to council in appropriate time. If you would trust that I would do that for you, then I'd happy to get back to you as soon as I can.
For you, Mayor, looking at all the other priorities Brandon has, we'll try our best, but even September 7th is just after Labor Day. So maybe we could say sometime in September. We have to work with the regional staff as well.
Yeah, yes, and I do understand, and I do understand as we move forward out of COVID, everything is going to be much busier, and September is quite a busy month, especially with all these schools getting back in session. All right, I'll read that resolution again just to clarify it. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Vane. Resolved that the matter regarding the school zone, Main and Nellis area, Main and Governor's area, be referred back to staff for report at the earliest convenience. And that's a recorded vote as requested by Councillor Vardy.
Councillor Bothwell,
Yes.
Councillor Dunstall,
Yes.
Councillor Frake, Councillor Frake,
Sorry, yes.
Councillor Catwell,
Yes.
Councillor Ritchie,
Yes.
Councillor Sharp, Councillor Sharp, Councillor Sharp.
Yes.
Okay.
My apologies. Yes.
Councillor Vane,
Yes.
Councillor Vardy,
Yes, and I ask that it be made a priority because school does start beginning of September and it's about the safety of children. Thank you.
and Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
That's carried.
All right, we're moving to 9.3 or 9.2C. Brought forward, or Councillor Bothwell's resolution, Winston Road 40km/h low speed zone. Councillor Bothwell, did you want to speak? And we do need a seconder. Have Councillor Vane as a seconder.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I basically have outlined it in the motion. I don't know if members of council have had an opportunity to read the December 8th, 2017 council report on the 40km zones. It sort of also leads into Councillor Vardy's previous motion where it talks about the school zones, but it also does talk about parks and recreational areas, and it does define that. It did say in that report that town staff at that time surveyed 47 parks and rec areas using the aforementioned criteria in this report, and determined that 12 locations were identified as low-speed 40km zones or areas. The majority of the locations were located along local roads within residential areas, and all locations chosen to become 40km zones will be signed and enforced 24 hours a day. School zones were the only ones getting flashing beacons. The list of parks were, for instance, Escarpment Vista Park on Lampman Drive, Oaks Road Park by Smith School, Casablanca South Park, Aspen and Beach, Roberts Road Park, Evergreens Park, Roberts Road and Willow Lane, Grand Avenue, there's a bunch of them, Dorchester Park, Gulfwoods Park. But based on the criteria in this report and the significant pedestrian activity that we have in the Winston Road neighborhood, and the call from the community to look at additional safety measures to protect pedestrians, considering that there is no buffer between the waterfront trail and the paved lane of traffic. What we're finding is that there's an increasing number of pedestrians crossing with children and from the developments at Bravo and Azure to the waterfront trail, and they're having to cross through parked cars in the lay-by parking, and the visibility is a little bit restricted that way for people, and people pulling out of the different ingress and egress of all the various developments just causes an additional obstruction. And it's a way to try to provide a safer environment for those people crossing with to the trail back and forth. from the community. So I believe it fully meets the warrants. I'm asking that staff review and assess it against that, and provide a report and recommendation back to council as well. And perhaps that can be done at the same time as Councillor Vardy's motion. So I'm just, that's the intent of the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to say I'm glad to see that we're asking staff to do a report when we're looking at changing some speed zones. As Councillor Bothwell stated here, that in the report they will come forward with the recommendations. And I do believe after the safety seminar that we had on July 26th, it's very important for them to have the opportunity to do a thorough investigation with the benchmarks and measurements that they use, and come back and provide the recommendations to council.
Seeing no further questions or comments, I'll read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Bothwell, second by Councillor Vane. Whereas on December 18th, 2017, Council approved Public Works Report DPW 17-50, Town of Grimsby low speed 40 km/h zones dated December 13th, 2017, the report. And whereas on May 22nd, 2018, Council subsequently approved Public Works Report DPW 18-21, amendment to Traffic Bylaw 89-2000 to include new low-speed 40 km/h zones and school zone flashing beacons dated May 11th, 2018. And whereas the report identifies a list of areas with parks and recreational amenities that meet criteria for low-speed 40 km/h zones, designation, and signage based on road classification, characteristics, roadway geometry, collision and speeding history. And whereas the Winston Road neighborhood between Oaks Road and Hunter Road has experienced significant residential growth and increased traffic volumes within the last 10 years, and whereas additional population density and further growth is planned within the Grimsby on the Lake area, the Winston Road neighborhood secondary plan, and whereas this area of Winston Road is a local road defined in the official plan, where the northerly shoulder hosts the raised and paved multi-use waterfront trail along its length, and whereas 4 parks are located directly on and or face Winston Road: Bravo Phase 2, LJM Azure East, Azure West, Oaks Road Dog Park, Grimsby Wetlands, and whereas there are multiple ingress and egress points to the developments and multiple lay-by parking areas that present challenges to visibility and safety for pedestrian crossing from the parks to the trail, and whereas the speed of vehicles on Winston Road has been identified and reported as a concern, whereas Winston Road between Oaks Road and Hunter Road is comparable to those identified park areas in the report that meet the criteria for designation as a low 40 km zone. Therefore, be it resolved that staff are requested to review and assess Winston Road between Oaks Road and Hunter Road for inclusion as a low-speed 40 km/h zone, and provide a report and recommendation to council. All in favor? That's carried. Moving to section 11, notice of motion. First notice of motion, August 3rd, 2021, paid off-duty police officers requested by Councillor Vane. Whereas the Niagara region provides policing services to the entire Niagara region, including the town of Grimsby, and whereas the town of Grimsby is served by the 8 district detachment, which includes Lincoln, West Lincoln, and Grimsby, and whereas the total area served by this detachment is 33.4% of the total area of the region, whereas officers of 8 district patrol a large portion of the Niagara region, committed to the visitors and citizens of the communities, and where as council recognizes that the 8 district detachment has a finite number of officers able to be deployed and responsible for traffic enforcement duties, and whereas the Niagara Regional Police Services have expressed their willingness to collaborate on projects and initiatives to further traffic safety efforts in the town of Grimsby. Therefore, be it resolved that council endorse the allocation of $50,000 to fund a 6-month pilot project for the purposes of hiring a paid off-duty officer to monitor and enforce traffic safety measures within the town, and that council directs staff to provide a report on total costs, suitable options for funding the pilot program, and timelines for implementation. I acknowledge that this notice of motion will be given consideration at the August 23rd, 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting. Notice of motion. Introduction date, August 3rd, 2021. Subject, inclusive municipalities diversity, requested by Councillor Bothwell. Whereas on August 17th, 2020, Council passed a resolution to support the request from the region of Niagara and joined the coalition of inclusive municipalities, and where the staff report supporting this resolution states that the town of Grimsby is committed to tackle racism and discrimination and promote human rights and diversity. Commitments to accessibility, social inclusion, and cultural diversity appear in a number of the town's strategic documents, including Council Strategic Priorities 2019 to 2022 and the Parks, Recreation, Culture Master Plan. And whereas the declaration to join the Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities sets guiding common commitments for all municipalities. And whereas the declaration also provides that the municipalities will exchange their expertise and share best practices with other municipalities involved in the coalition, and will report publicly on annual basis on actions undertaken towards the realization of these common commitments. Therefore, be it resolved that the Chief Administration Officer be directed to report back to Council on the achievements and steps taken since August 17th, 2020 towards the declaration's common commitments, and that the CAO provide Council with the town's action plan on diversity, inclusion, and equity following the common commitments, and that the creation of a Council and Citizen Advisory Committee on diversity, inclusion, and equity with appropriate terms of reference be brought forward for consideration in Q4. I acknowledge that this notice of motion will be given consideration at the August 23rd, 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting. Move to section 12, correspondence. Under administration and finance. Any questions or comments? Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I'd just like to lift the NPCA resolution FA 147-2021 pollinator species. Grimsby board meeting highlights the resolution within that letter. I would like to have council endorse that resolution and to encourage our planning staff to support the recommendations within that resolution, which is to look at promoting pollinator habitat through planning and development processes as part of the pre-consultation agreement. So I'd like to endorse it and encourage our planning staff to work on the recommendations therein.
All right, so that's being lifted while the clerk's working on writing that up. I'll need a mover and seconder for the remainder of the correspondence. Councillor Dunstall and Councillor Frake. Moved by Councillor Dunstall, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved that the correspondence under administration and finance pertaining to Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority correspondence regarding FA 4521 regarding compliance enforcement, Q2 statistics. Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority board meeting highlights, July 16th, 2021. Niagara Regional Transit, Grimsby overall NRT on-demand service metrics be received. All in favor? That's carried. All right. So I have Councillor Bothwell as the mover on the lifted correspondence. And a seconder, Councillor Bain. Moved by Councillor Bothwell, second by Councillor Vane. Resolved that correspondence regarding the pollinator species be endorsed and that planning support the context therein. All in favor? And that's carried. All right, we have the resolution on Motors and Music Festival. I have Councillor Frank as the mover. And a seconder, Councillor Ritchie. Moved by Councillor Frank, second by Councillor Ritchie. Resolved that council deem the Motors and Music Festival event being held in Southward Community Park on September 4th, 2021 as municipally significant, and that the applicant be provided a copy of this resolution for inclusion with their application to the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario for a special occasions permit. All in favor? That's carried. And our next meeting, Committee of the Whole, is scheduled for August 23rd, 2021 at 6 p.m. And this meeting is adjourned, and we will be meeting for our council meeting at 7:30. See you then. Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Hello. Sound check.
We can hear you, Councillor Sharp. Thank you.
All right, good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone back to the Town of Grimsby Council meeting of Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021. Up first, we have, could everyone rise for the playing of the national anthem? Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, I need a mover and seconder to approve the agenda. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Dunstall. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Dunstall. Resolved that the agenda for the council meeting of August 3rd, 2021 be approved. All in favor? And that is carried.
Aye.
Up next, we have adoption of previous minutes. Need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Cadwell. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, Councillor Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to lift an item. I just got to find it here. Give me a moment. I lost it. Sorry about that. Okay, it's under I'm getting there. It's report CW 21-223, which is 7.1D. Sorry. It's to deal with finance structure.
So that's from the Committee of the Whole minutes of July 19th, 2021.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah. So I have a mover as Councillor Frake, a seconder for that to lift that report, Councillor Vardy. And Councillor Frake, you'd like to speak on that?
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. Yes.
Oh, sorry, we have to vote to lift it, I guess. Yes.
Sorry.
Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Vardy. Resolved that Council lift item CW 21-223 from the Committee of the Whole minutes of July 19th, 2021 for separate consideration. Recorded vote.
Councillor Bothwell,
Yes.
Councillor Dunstall,
No.
Councillor Frake,
Yes.
Councillor Cadwell,
Yes.
Councillor Ritchie,
No.
Councillor Sharp,
No.
Councillor Vane, Councillor Vane, Councillor Vardy,
Yes.
Mayor Jordan,
Yes.
that's carried.
All right, Councillor Frake, discussion on that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Jordan. Yeah, I voted against this particular report at the last meeting, and I know it was carried 5-4, I think it was. But anyway, I still have a concern. I'm reaching out to my fellow councillors because this is a head count that we did not approve in the last budget. If we approve this head count now to go into the budget, it means next year we're going to be looking at having to add that much more into the budget to accommodate another head count. And I believe, and I'd like to ask the question, if I could, how many staff do we have now in the finance department? Maybe Harry can answer that because I believe.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor, to the councillor. As the report stated last week, we have a head count of 14 full-time and a mix of part-time staff that make up a 1.33 FTEs. So we have about 15.33 labor in the budget and approved. So all we're asking for is the policy says that we'd like to convert those part-time staff into one full-time. So we go from 14 headcount to 15. We are not increasing the budget whatsoever. That's been allocated in 2021. We can do that within the existing funding envelope by converting 1.33 part-time into one full-time. So there's absolutely no impact on the budget. You don't need any more money for 2022. In fact, as we stated in the report, this senior analyst will help us, with some cost improvements that we should see in 2022, 2023 and beyond. So we're actually adding a full-time. It's a policy that if we ever want to convert part-time to full-time, we have to come to council. We're not asking for more money. We want to actually do more work for the same cost.
I still have a concern that with part-time staff, I mean, they can come and go. We don't have to hire them full-time. They're not on the head count. If we hire a full-time person, then it's a whole different kettle of fish when it comes to revising, refreshing, making the whole staffing process more efficient. And I think that 14 to 15 people in a finance department with a municipal budget of about $40 million kind of sounds a bit high to me in terms of per person per $1 million of finance and budget. I really think that we should put this off till the next budget deliberation and go from there. I mean, and then if we feel that at that point in time that we can justify another head count, then we should. In the meantime, if we have extra money, let's put it into surplus and eventually into reserves. I mean, I just feel that for a small municipality like Grimsby with only, with a $40 million budget and 14 to 15 people in finance, I have a problem computing those numbers. It just doesn't make any sense. It just sounds over the top. And I welcome any other comments from my colleagues.
Councillor Sharp, then Councillor Ritchie. Oh, CAO, you wanted to comment?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we did do some looks at some other municipalities and it's in line. We're also adding procurement and the risk management component in there. So it is in line. We're not, I repeat, we're not adding anything to the budget from a cost perspective. We're trying to do more with the same amount of funding envelope. Thank you.
Councillor Sharp.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Jordan. The way I understood this when we voted on it was that there was no cost impact, that we were just changing 2 part-time positions into 1 full-time position. And I see that as more efficient. So I'm not sure why we're reconsidering this, but this seems to make sense to me. If our staff is recommended, then I'm just wondering why was this brought back for separate consideration? If someone could explain that to me.
Well, it's 2 part-time people who we can let go anytime we want. We don't have to absorb those costs. And we're adding a full-time member to the staff, which makes it a little more costly long-term. And we're actually adding another member to the full-time staff complement. And I think that in a finance department with a budget as small as we have, with 15 people, I think is a little bit over the top. That's my justification. And I'd like to see this thing deliberated properly at the next budget meeting. And that's the reason why I brought it back.
When will we be approving the next budget?
We're only talking about another 6 or so months before we get into budget deliberations again. So I don't know why we're rushing into this right now. I really don't.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I guess my first question would be, let's say we don't approve this. I'm pretty sure that they have the authority to continue on with the 2 contract positions. So there's absolutely no savings and no costs involved. So they would continue on. We had a report that said this would help us substantially going into the next budget. So when people don't, for myself, when I look at things, I look at this as a bonus for us that we'll be able to accomplish this budget in a more timely fashion. We've tried to do this every year, and every year, it always gets delayed and goes longer and longer and longer. So when I look at this 1.33 to 1, there is no cost whatsoever. And if we don't approve it, that means we're just going to maintain 2 part-time positions. And when you look at morale, when you look at all kinds of things in any organization, full-time staff always helps.
Councillor Vardy.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I think we should defer this item, and I'd like to defer it. The reason being is there is not enough clarity right now about the budget in finance. One, I do agree with Councillor Frank that we should be looking at this in the context of budget times, because we don't know what other priorities there are. We do have to weigh them against the other. I'm not so sure it's kind of that it's not going to cost additional, because once you take on another person, you're also paying for benefits, pension, what have you. Those costs are significantly higher. And I still don't have a clear picture of what our finance budget is, or our budget for finance, given that we let go 3 people that created a surplus. And while our CAO is saying it's not costing any extra money, is that because we have this surplus? And so we're able to pay for it this year, but next year, are we in the same situation? I would like a really clear picture about the salary budget and sort of who's in, who's out, and what these salaries are. I don't care if you attach names to them, but I would like to know what the bottom line is. And we've not been given a clear picture of that from our CEO. And, once again, it's another reason for wanting to look at it in the context of the budget. I have a real worry that in the last sort of 2 years, we've seen a lot of staff creep. And I mean that in the sense of sort of expanding our staff complement. And I don't feel comfortable with kind of where we're at right now, or knowing where we're at right now compared to, say, where we were 2 years ago. And I'd really like to be able to look at that picture, so I'm making an informed decision. And I just don't feel like we've been given the facts in order to do that. So I'm putting forward a motion to defer until we get that information.
All right, I have the motion moved by Councillor Vardy, seconded by Councillor Frake. Resolved that item CW 21-223 finance structure update from the Committee of the Whole minutes of July 19th, 2021 be deferred. Recorded vote.
Councillor Bothwell,
Yes.
Councillor Dunstall,
No.
Councillor Frake,
Absolutely, yes.
Councillor Cadwell,
No.
Councillor Ritchie,
Absolutely no.
Councillor Sharp,
No.
Councillor Vane,
No.
Councillor Vardy,
Undoubtedly, yes.
Mayor Jordan,
Yes.
that's defeated.
All right, we move back to the original resolution. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Cadwell. Resolved that the Committee of the Whole minutes of July 19th, 2021, Council minutes of July 19th, 2021, Special Council minutes of July 22nd, 2021, and Special Council minutes of July 26th, 2021 be approved. All in favor? That is carried.
Aye.
And we move to section 13, bylaws. Need a mover and seconder to introduce bylaws. Oh, Councillor Bothwell, you wanted to speak on it?
Can we vote separately on each of the bylaws? Is that possible?
Yeah. Did you want to lift a specific one or?
I wanted to, considering the votes on the motions previously on the items on these bylaws, the procurement, for instance, and the Phantom Squadron, I would like those two to be voted on separately.
I'd like to agree with that.
Okay. That's true.
And recorded vote on those two, please.
Point of clarity, Mr. Mayor. We've already passed these motions, correct? And the motions have already been recorded as votes, have they not?
I believe so.
So this is a formality, and I think that the record already shows that how people voted.
It's the councillor's prerogative to lift them and call for a recorded vote. All right. So we need a mover and seconder for the, this is the remainder, right? The other ones? The remainder of the bylaws. That's moved by Councillor Bothwell, seconder. Councillor Ritchie. Moved by Councillor Bothwell, second by Councillor Ritchie. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaws 2155 and 2157 inclusive, and that same be read a first time. All in favor? That's carried.
Aye.
And moved by Councillor Bothwell, second by Councillor Frick. Leave be given to introduce bylaws 2156 inclusive. That same be read a first time. Recorded vote.
Councillor Bothwell,
No.
Councillor Dunstall,
Yes.
Councillor Frake, Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Councillor Frake,
No.
Councillor Cadwell,
Yes.
Councillor Ritchie,
Yes.
Councillor Sharp,
Yes.
Councillor Vane,
Yes.
Councillor Vardy,
No.
Mayor Jordan.
No.
That's carried.
Moved by Councillor Bothwell, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 2158, inclusive, and that same be read a first time. Recorded vote?
Councillor Bothwell,
No.
Councillor Dunstall,
Yes.
Councillor Frake,
No.
Councillor Cadwell,
Yes.
Councillor Ritchie,
Yes.
Councillor Sharp,
Yes.
Councillor Vane, Councillor Vane,
Yes.
Councillor Vardy,
No.
Mayor Jordan.
No.
That's carried.
Need a mover and seconder for second and third reading of the bylaws? Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Vane. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Vane. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaws 21-55 to 21-58, inclusive, read a first time, now be read a second and third time, and finally passed, and the mayor and the town clerk to sign and seal the same and rule to council to the contrary notwithstanding. All in favor? That's carried.
Aye.
All right, we move now to announcements. I just have one announcement. Grimsby Fire Department lost a veteran, Ray or Razor Fisher, which is his name. He served on Grimsby Fire Department for almost 40 years. He was involved as a senator in his retirement, and he was just a larger than life person of the community of Grimsby. Just a person that was always around, always involved in everything, always had a smile on his face. And Ray Fisher will really be missed by everyone in the community. And I just wanted to put my condolences out there. Councillor Cadwell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Jordan. I just two things. I was very privileged to attend a health and safety meeting at GPI, as well as the mayor was there, as well as Councilor Sharp was there. Quite a safety milestone for the employees, inside, outside employees of Grimsby Power. They reached 8,858 hours. Maybe I didn't say it quite right, but that's a huge, large amount of hours without any lost time incidents. I just want to reiterate what the chair of GPI said at the event. The function in the construction industry, that is a huge number of hours to go to attain without a lost time incident. And great work by the staff, great work by the management. So anyways, it's a very good event to attend. The other thing too, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Furtick didn't, I don't know if he's still here or not, but anyways, I'm just looking for an update on the lane lines to be painted on South Service Road, west of Casablanca. You mentioned, or Mr. Furtick mentioned the end of July. I was hoping to see that. Just going to give an incident that happened. I was heading west there, and a gentleman pulled out who was in my lane as I was heading westbound. So anyways, is there any update on that when we can see the lines to be painted? I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor Furtick.
well, I guess I'll have to just reiterate through you, Mayor, to Councillor Cadwell. The response that I got was from the region, the director from the transportation, and that came from staff that was doing the lines. So I'm sorry, but the only thing I can do is ask them again. But I'll only ask them one more time because I don't want to tick them off. Because and I understand, I know where you're coming from, but I know that they work however they do it, and I'll ask again. It's the only thing I can do. Sorry.
Yeah, okay, I appreciate that, Councilor Ferda, because those lines are generally in the past, they're painted twice through the season, usually early spring. And because I've been keeping an eye on that, as, you know, my tenure on council, because it is a very busy area. And again, it's people that aren't familiar with the area, with the lanes and that. So, but yeah, thank you very much. Then I appreciate. Hopefully they can get at it soon, because even now with phase 3 and the long weekend, the gateway was jam packed. So, anyways, thanks, Councilor.
Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I would just like to let the community know that the Grimsby Public Library is working on their strategic plan for the future, and we're seeking some community input. On the Let's Talk Grimsby website, there's a survey that's just been posted today, and we're encouraging not just users of the current users of our library, but potential users, non-users, new residents in the community to tell us what's really important to them to help us steer and guide the library into our future strategic planning. We want to hear from you what's important. So please take a minute to go to the Let's Talk Grimsby website and look at the library community survey. It's open until August the 25th. And we'd encourage you to share that through your networks with your friends and neighbors, just to make sure that we're delivering the services that the community wants. There's also 150 things to do at your library. We're celebrating the 150th anniversary, basically, and there are 150 days left of 2021 as of today. And so it's being launched today. It's on the actual Grimsby CA website, celebrating 150 years. And please do take a moment to have a look at that. The 150 things to do at your library list, and it's great to share with your networks as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bothwell. I just wanted to, okay, go ahead, Councillor Vardy.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that the Sessanta Emilia rally is taking place again this weekend. On Saturday, and so if you're looking to see some amazing supercars, they'll be in front of the Peach King Center. You can come and take a look. And what's really great about this, it's a fundraiser for the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital. So all the proceeds are going there. So great initiative by one of our town residents, and look forward to it happening this weekend. Thank you.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to congratulate Canal Soda on their grand opening this past weekend. It's great to see another business have their official opening, and I wish them all the best. Thank you.
Thank you. And just one other thing, I just wanted to say that it was nice going to the Vintage Artisan Fair at Nellis Manor on the weekend, and the museum is open for the month of August. There was quite a distance crowd at Nellis Manor on the weekend. And seeing no further announcements, our next meeting is scheduled for August 23rd, 2021, following the committee of the whole. Just need a mover and seconder for the confirming bylaw. Moved by Councillor Vane. Seconder, Councillor Ritchie. Moved by Councillor Vane, second by Councillor Ritchie. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 2159 and that same be read a first time. All in favor? That's carried.
Aye.
Need a mover and seconder for second and third reading. Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Cadwell. Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Cadwell. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 2159 read a first time, be now read a second and third time and finally passed, and the mayor and town clerk do sign and seal the same and rule council to the contrary notwithstanding. All in favor? That's carried. Meeting is adjourned. Good night, everyone.
Aye.